For decades, buying a pre-construction condo in Toronto, well, it was basically like printing money. It was the way you got onto the property ladder, no questions asked. But that entire path, it's completely crumbled. So today, we're going to dig into why Toronto's once unstoppable condo market is officially broken, what that really means for anyone trying to buy a home right now, and what the experts are saying is just around the corner. I mean, just let that quote sink in for a second. This is not just some little slowdown we're talking about. According to real estate advisor Ben Myers, the market for new condos is in a state of distress that we haven't seen since the really deep recession of the early 1990s. So, yeah, this isn't a dip. This is a historic, fundamental break. 27. Think about that number. For 27 straight years, new condo prices in Toronto only went one way, up. It was this incredible, unprecedented run, nothing like it in any other city in North America. And then it's like the roller coaster didn't just dip, it flew completely off the tracks. So how on earth did we get here? All right, so let's first get a handle on what the market actually looks like today. This is really a story about the end of an era. The old rules, the old assumptions, they just don't apply anymore. For the longest time, the model was so simple, right? Developers would launch a project, investors and first-time buyers would line up to buy, and by the time the building was finally done years later, its value had just soared. That whole engine is now completely broken. There is a giant chasm between what it costs a developer to build a new condo and what anyone is actually willing or even able to pay for it. So what actually caused this thing to break? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was what one expert calls a toxic soup of economic pressures that all just happened to boil over at the exact same time. Let's break down the ingredients in that soup. Okay, so first, the soaring interest rates. That was really the final straw that just cracked the whole market. But all this pressure had already been building up for years. You had pandemic inflation making materials way more expensive, land prices that had shot through the roof, and government development charges that just kept climbing and climbing. All of this created one last huge problem. The price difference between a brand new condo and a nearly identical one you could buy on the resale market, it just became totally absurd. And this chart just shows that gap perfectly. I mean, look at this. In the early 2000s, you'd pay maybe a 5 to 10% premium for a new condo, which kind of makes sense. By 2017, that had already grown to 15 to 20%. But then look at the peak in 2021. People were paying 40 to 50% more for a condo that wouldn't even exist for 5 years than they would for one they could buy that very same day. The market was just completely disconnected from reality. And here's something a lot of people just don't realize. Take a look at that huge slice of the pie. A staggering 30% of the cost of a new condo in Toronto goes directly to government fees and taxes. Now, to put that in perspective, in a lot of American cities, that number is more like 6 or 7%. So think about that. In Toronto, we are paying more in just taxes for a new condo than the entire cost of a similar unit in a city like Dallas. It's wild. So with the pre-construction market basically in a deep freeze, buyers are looking at what's available right now. And this brings us to one of the biggest dilemmas in the city. For the same amount of money, do you buy a house or do you buy a condo? The answer, as you'll see, points to two completely different futures. And this is so much more than a financial question, isn't it? It's a lifestyle question. It's about what you value, how you want to spend your weekends, what kind of future you're actually trying to build. So how do you make a choice that big? Well, let's look at two real-world examples to make this tangible. Okay, on one side, for a similar budget, you've got a renovated 3-bedroom semi-detached house in Weston. It's got its own private yard, your own parking spot. It's a home. On the other side, you've got a brand new 3-bedroom condo right in the heart of King West. We're talking a gym, a rooftop lounge. The whole city is right at your doorstep. Same number of bedrooms, same number of bathrooms, but they are worlds apart. And the trade-offs here are pretty stark. The house gives you space, privacy, and total control, but you are on the hook for every single repair, from a leaky roof to a broken furnace. The condo, on the other hand, offers this low-maintenance lifestyle with awesome amenities, but you've got those monthly fees, in this case, almost $800 a month, and you're living by the condo board's rules. One choice prioritizes long-term equity on scarce land. The other prioritizes immediate access and convenience. But what if this whole house versus condo debate is actually the wrong way to look at the problem? In today's market, some experts are arguing that your first home purchase isn't really about lifestyle at all. It's about something way more important, your trajectory. This quote here from real estate strategist Kevin Yu, it just nails it. The old advice was always, just get in the market, buy a condo, build some equity, then trade up to a house. But that advice was for a Toronto that frankly just doesn't exist anymore. Today, that very first purchase could be the thing that determines whether you ever move forward or if you just get stuck for good. So let's ask the question, could that safe first step onto the property ladder, could it actually be a trap? Let's break down exactly why that old, reliable path is now broken for so many people. So here's the scenario. Picture this. You buy a condo as your starter home. For the next 5 years, you save your money, you build up some equity, you do everything right. But in that exact same time, house prices have appreciated so much faster than condo prices that the gap between your condo's value and the price of a house has actually gotten wider. You are further away from your goal now than when you first started. You're trapped. So instead of thinking starter home, the new mindset is all about trajectory. What does that mean? It means choosing the property that gives you the most options 5 years down the road. It's about picking the asset that has the best shot of closing the gap to your next goal, even if it means being a little less comfortable today. And this really boils it down to the core strategic choice. You could face a few really tight years by stretching for a house right now. That's one period of discomfort. The alternative is buying a condo, outgrowing it in a few years, and then facing the massive disruption of having to sell, buy, and chase a housing market that has already left you in the dust. So the choice is discomfort once or disruption twice. Okay, so given this completely new reality, where is the market actually headed from here? Well, with all these new condo projects basically on ice, experts are forecasting a pretty predictable and pretty dramatic shift just a few years down the line. Okay, so take a look at this timeline. Right now, and for the next few years, we're basically in a market bottom. There's this wave of condos that started construction back during the boom, and they're all being completed now. That creates an oversupply, and it's keeping prices and rents flat. But here's the kicker. Because no new projects are launching today, by 2028, that pipeline of new homes is going to run completely dry. Completions are forecast to drop to half of what the city actually needs, and when that happens, you get a massive supply shock, which will almost certainly drive prices and rents way up again. And you know what? The smart money sees this coming a mile away. The big developers, the ones with deep pockets, they're quietly starting to build purpose-built rental buildings right now. Why would they do that in a down market? It's simple, because they know that in 2028, when supply is choked off and demand is high, they will be in the absolute perfect position. They're not reacting to today's market, they're positioning for tomorrow's. So let's just boil this all down. What are the key takeaways here? First, the golden age of condos, it's over. The market has fundamentally changed. Second, the old starter home playbook can actually be a trap that leaves you falling further and further behind. And finally, the smartest buyers are thinking less about lifestyle today and way more about trajectory. Which purchase gives them the most power and the most options down the road? And that really brings us to the final question you have to ask yourself. The old Toronto market, it rewarded just getting in, just playing it safe. But this new market, it rewards strategic positioning. It's no longer about playing it safe, it's about playing it smart. So you have to ask, what's my trajectory?